Welcome back to another Explainer Focus Learners. Today we're diving into something truly fascinating and maybe a little mind-blowing about how the human mind adapts to its environment. We so often look at our little quirks or what we think of as our personality flaws and we kind of beat ourselves up over them, right? But what if those habits aren't flaws at all? What if they're actually incredible, highly logical survival skills designed by a completely brilliant brain just to protect you? Well, today we're breaking down 7 seemingly normal habits that are actually massive signs of childhood emotional neglect.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever stopped to consider that the psychological armor you're wearing right now was custom-built for a childhood world that, well, you don't even live in anymore? See, when kids face environments that lack what they fundamentally need, they don't just give up, they adapt. They build these really clever strategies to figure out how to simply need less, to survive in their surroundings. And the crazy thing is, we carry those exact same habits right into adulthood, completely mistaking these deeply rooted survival strategies for simple personality traits.
To really get this, we absolutely have to recognize a crucial distinction. When we talk about childhood trauma, we usually picture the visible stuff, right? The loud arguments, the big chaotic events you can literally point a finger at and say, yep, that is exactly what happened. But on the complete other side of that coin, we have invisible neglect. And this is completely different because it isn't defined by what happened, it's defined by what never happened. It's the unasked questions. It's the fact that no one comforted you when you cried. The total absence of those basic things leaves no visible scar, which makes it a profound, invisible wound. And as you'll see, children adapt to this emptiness by building very specific habits.
All right, let's move into Section 1, the Fortress of Independence, covering Habits 1 and 7.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how society views this trait versus what it actually is in reality. Habit number 1 is never asking for help. And society totally praises this. It calls you self-sufficient, capable, strong, right? But internally, this extreme self-sufficiency is a hardcore defense mechanism. Think about it. When a child reaches out and consistently meets indifference, or worse, irritation, the brain makes this quiet, split-second calculation. Asking for help equals rejection. So I must become my own source of literally everything. When you refuse help as an adult, you're not just being independent. You are actively protecting yourself from the very specific pain of having a need and watching it go completely unmet.
And this perfectly ties into habit number 7. You are the therapist friend. You're everyone's reliable support, the one who carries everybody else's burdens. But the second you are in a crisis, you vanish entirely. Poof, you don't call anyone. Why? Because somewhere along the line in your childhood, you learned that your value lived only in being useful to your caregivers. Being helpful produced warmth, but having your own needs, that produced withdrawal. Because of this, receiving care today doesn't actually feel like love to you. It feels like a trap, like this unpayable debt you want to avoid at all costs.
Moving right along to Section 2, the muted inner world. Here we're looking at habits 2 and 6. So habit number 2 is simply not knowing what you feel. Someone asks how you're feeling and your mind just goes completely blank. Psychology actually has a term for this. It's called alexithymia. It's basically a disconnection between your body's physical emotional signals and your conscious awareness of them. Look, in a healthy environment, parents act as emotional mirrors. They say things like, oh, you're crying because you feel frustrated. They literally label the emotion for you. But if your emotions are constantly ignored, that mirroring never happens. The child just learns that feeling things produces absolutely nothing, so they simply sever the wires. They completely mute their inner world.
And honestly, this muting leads directly to habit number 6, chronic self-doubt. You know that endless, exhausting loop of second-guessing literally every decision or relationship? It's absolutely crucial to understand that distrusting your own judgment isn't just some quirky personality trait. No way. It is the direct, logical result of a childhood where your reality was consistently denied. Think about it. If a kid says, "I'm sad," and the parent immediately responds, "No, you're not, you're just tired," that child learns their internal compass is completely broken. You start looking entirely outside yourself for confirmation that what you are experiencing is actually real.
Okay, Section 3, Shrinking to Survive, which covers habits 3 and 4. And this brilliantly illustrates the huge disconnects between our outward appearance and our inward reality. Take habit 3, for example, over-explaining. Society sees you as incredibly conscientious and logical. But what it actually is you pre-defending your choices to avoid criticism. You are literally over-explaining to a ghost from your past, a parent who never gave you the basic fundamental permission to simply choose something without having to earn it through airtight logic.
And then there's habit 4, apologizing for absolutely everything. Society calls you exceptionally polite, but in reality, you are apologizing for the simple act of existing. You internalize the message that your very presence was an imposition, so you try to take up as little space as humanly possible.
Which brings us to section 4, the chameleon effect, looking at habit 5.
Habit 5 is all about shifting your personality based on the room you walk into. You know exactly what I mean. You perfectly read the room, seamlessly adjusting your tone, your jokes, your opinions to match whoever you happen to be with. Once again, society praises this. They call it high social intelligence. But if you grew up with emotional neglect, this is actually hypervigilance, wearing the costume of charm. Constant monitoring of unpredictable adult moods was a wildly necessary survival tool just to see if the ground was safe to stand on today. You became a mirror because having a solid, fixed self simply didn't feel safe.
I want to pause our analysis for just a moment here because this is so important. Listen to this. These habits were not character flaws. They were survival tools. If you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in this explainer today, it is so deeply, deeply important for you to understand that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Your brain did exactly what it was brilliantly designed to do. It looked at an environment that was asking entirely too much of a child, and it built these incredible strategies to keep you safe and functional. They worked. They got you here.
And that leads us to section 5, putting down the armor and finding a path forward.
So the crucial point is this: while that survival gear kept you totally safe back then, it was built for a world that simply doesn't exist anymore. Carrying that heavy armor into adulthood is now costing you the real connections, the wholeness, and frankly, the freedom you deserve to have. Healing doesn't start with some dramatic overnight transformation. Actually, it starts with small, almost invisible daily steps of courage. Step 1. Try stating a simple preference instead of immediately saying, "I don't care, you pick." Step 2. When something isn't your fault, literally count to 5 before you let the word sorry fall out of your mouth. And step 3, allow someone to help you carry something, even if your independent fortress is screaming that you can easily manage it alone.
As you start taking these small, brave steps, I want you to remember this truth. You are absolutely allowed to thank your old armor for protecting you when you had no other options, but you are finally allowed to put it down. The people who truly love you will not experience your needs as a burden. They will experience them as a chance to love you. You were never too much, and you were never not enough. You were just a child who deserved to be noticed, and you still do.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to ponder. Which of these 7 habits felt closest to your own experience? I'd love for you to drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, naming the habit isn't a sign of weakness, not at all. It's actually the very first